Good evening, and welcome to the Council Advisory Committee meeting of November 12th, 2024. It is 6 p.m., and I call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome in this brand new council and acknowledge as well that the town of Kentville is located in Mi'kma'ki, which is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and it is a privilege to be here. This meeting is being held in chambers and being live streamed as well on the Town of Kentville's YouTube channel. You can also find the meeting package uploaded to the Town of Kentville's website. CEO, could you take the roll call?
Didn't know that was coming.
We have a quorum.
We do have quorum. Councillor Savage is not in attendance, but I didn't receive, to the best of my knowledge, any regrets from her, so I expect she will arrive.
You know what, I'll take that. She did give her regrets, yeah. Okay, Council, you've been provided with a copy of the agenda. CEO, do you have any changes to make?
Yes, Mayor Xavier, I do. 4B, Valley Mountain Bike presentation. That will be moved to December CAC.
Okay.
So it'll be rescheduled.
Okay.
And if we could add in the in-camera session 10A, personnel, and if we could rename 10B from legal to personnel. Those are the changes.
Okay, are there any other changes or additions or deletions to the agenda? There being none, I would take a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Councillor Baker and seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Motion passed. Are there any conflicts of interest to report this evening? Okay, and the next thing, you've been provided with a set of minutes from the October 15th CAC meeting. Are there any changes to this set of minutes? If there are none, they will be accepted as presented. Okay. So we're going to begin. I just have one announcement I want to make. Just a reminder that the town of Kentville and the Kentville business community have partnered up on the delivery of holidays again this year on November 22nd. There's going to be a market, free skating, and of course the famous tree lighting at 6 p.m. So make sure you come that evening. So we have one presentation tonight. We'll welcome our presenter up, Sophia. And you will have 10 minutes to speak, and I'll probably flag a piece of paper if you go over the 10 minutes. So,
I will not.
All right, good. You can go ahead anytime you want to start.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm really excited to be in front of you this evening to talk about work that I am doing in partnership with the town of Kentville through the Green Foundation.
We won't start your 10 minutes yet. So. Do you want?
Yeah, try that.
Okay.
Go to you again.
Oops.
It's hot now.
Okay.
What's red?
Yeah, it's right here.
Oh, not there.
Right? Sorry about that, folks.
May not be the mic, but let's try the mic.
There should be a little squiggle over the end.
Yeah. One, two, maybe. You can get rid of mine. It won't be squeaky. I think we're hot now. Test. It was. Turned right. Maybe. Try to get
Okay.
Sorry.
You know what? Nothing. It's doesn't turn color. Did it? Does it do it on yours? Do we put her in cage there? Good idea, or? Okay. Sophie, if you can speak really loud, we can get going if you wanna. Can you speak loud? You go as loud as you want. You go ahead.
Screen should be on. Sorry. Too many things going on. Folks, this is...
And go.
If you need me to speak up, just let me know.
Okay.
Before talking about the program that we're doing with Kentville, I just wanted to acknowledge that we are in the land of the Mi'kmaq on unceded, unsurrendered ancestral territory, and especially as we're thinking about climate change and talking about the impacts that our world is having on the environment, we really try and center the principles of decolonization, of reconciliation, of Mi'kmaq ways of knowing into the work that we're doing, and hopefully this is something that we can bring into this amazing community. So the Cave Foundation is an organization that's based out of Dartmouth, and it was founded in the 80s and began as an organization that was trying to take pollutants out of the environment. But since then, we have grown to work across lots of different sectors of the climate space. The program that I work for is the Community Climate Capacity, or CCC program. So this program was established as a recognition of the difficulty Nova Scotian municipalities were having in working towards climate action because of a lack of capacity. And so, you know, the program is centered around providing the dedicated staff support to municipalities through climate leads. And so I am one of 7 climate leads working across 19 communities in the province. We are supported by 15 people on our team, and so there are 7 of us, and then we also have 4 specialists. We have an adaptation specialist, so he's really focused on the impacts that climate hazards and risks are having on our communities. We have a mitigation specialist, so this is someone who is looking at the greenhouse gas emissions and how we can reduce our energy usage to produce less emissions. We have a planning and policy specialist and a funding and engagement specialist. And then our fearless leader, our program manager. So to talk about myself, I'm from Ontario, but I fell in love with the Annapolis Valley when I went to Acadia. I studied a Bachelor of Politics and Environmental and Sustainability Studies. While I was at Acadia, I developed a love for sustainable food systems. I had the pleasure of working at the Wolfville Farmers Market for a couple of years. And I really enjoyed the experience of being in a community that was really connected. And I think that community connectivity is a really amazing way to become more resilient to the impacts of climate change. So to look at CCC in Kentville, we are with the community until March 2027, so this is a really exciting 3-year program where we offer continuing support and develop through the climate work that we're doing. In the first year, we're really focused on capacity building, so we're having conversations with different departments in the town, understanding what the climate priorities are for the different municipal services that they work very hard to provide. We're engaging the community through working groups, through task teams to begin implementing this work. We are working towards a bird-friendly town designation, which is a really fun project that we're just about halfway through right now. The town has engaged in a lot of different partnerships with community organizations. One that we're working with right now is the Quest Net Zero Community Accelerator Program, and so this is working to understand how Kentville is interacting with greenhouse gas emissions and how we can work to reduce those. And then we're doing a lot of research and planning for the next 2 years, understanding best practices in the region and more broadly in Canada to see where we can bring innovation into the community. As we move into year 2, we really start going into action mode, so we're applying for grants. We are moving from the planning into the implementation stage with the Quest program. we're looking at stormwater management and really beginning to think about projects. And that leads us into year 3, which is really focused on continuity. So we want to see projects being implemented, and then we also want to see the internal capacity for the town being built so that beyond the completion of this program, Kentville can continue to address climate work. So the community climate capacity cohort is kind of the 19 communities who are in this program. So you can see them highlighted across the map. Kentville is the tiny little blue one in the middle, but we're really, really impressed with the work that this town is doing. Kentville has been super engaged and kind of the golden child of our program in a lot of ways. They're always the first ones to jump at a new opportunity, and we get really, really excited through the work that we get to do with this community. We have a couple of really neat opportunities with the Community Climate Capacity Program, namely the Community of Practice and Municipal Climate Learning Group. And so this is really an opportunity to connect with other municipalities in the region to understand what they're doing and how we can share resources, share knowledge, and build our collective impact to make Nova Scotia more resilient to climate change. So a final update on the work that we've done so far. This program started in April, so we've just finished our first summer together. We had some fun doing a bird walk in May with the bird team, and we were able to provide some really great support to the Oakdean Park Community Garden Group. So we were able to do some mapping of the garden beds that exist there and share some resources so that they can continue doing amazing work into next summer. You see a picture here of one of my coworkers doing a pollinator presentation to some of the kids at the park. And then we're looking at flood mapping and, as I mentioned, identifying funding streams so that we can move into project planning and implementation in the next 2 years. And on the horizon for this program, hopefully, I'm going to say definitely, we're going to become a bird-friendly town. So that's something we can look forward to in the winter. And then, yeah, getting applications in to begin implementing these projects. So that is my presentation. I would love to answer any questions you may have about the work we're doing.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. Council, if you have any questions, I guess you can illuminate your lights. Councillor Baker?
My microphone is available to...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You don't have a question then?
I will once I formulate them.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Sophia, for your presentation. I'm just wondering now, the garden project up in Oakdean is fantastic, and I'm really happy to see that project. I'm assuming that through the next few years that you will be bringing more projects to us. And could you give us an idea maybe of the types of those projects? So like, would there be a solar project in mind or something like that?
Yeah, so there are, it's a really exciting time to be working in this space because there are so many opportunities.
Right.
And so really what my program is trying to do is understand the priorities of staff and of council, and then find the funding essentially to do those projects. And so it's up to you. It's up to the staff to decide what it is that we can focus on.
So we are the ones who are going to come up with the project.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions for Sophia? Councillor Baker.
I apologize. I'm new at this job, so I'm just learning how your great work overlaps with what we're doing here. And I ask for council's guidance on this. The Clean Foundation is a fabulous resource. We also have them bringing information to us about flooding. And there is our own in-house flood master plan preparation through Dillon Consulting happening. How did the two interlink?
Yeah. So once that plan is finished, so we've been chatting with Public Works to understand what it is that that plan is going to encapsulate, but we have the flood map data coming in from the province, and as we kind of think about community resiliency, this plan is going to be able to show us what it is that we need to start working on. So whether that's infrastructure or whether that's like hot flooding spots in the community, that will be the data, the foundation to then point us towards what the project would need to be to start addressing those issues, those flood-related issues.
So I'll look to Jennifer to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe some of the flood mitigation that this will be looking at will be what the property owner can do. Am I correct in that? To better address issues on their own property, whereas the stormwater master plan will look at our infrastructure and deficiencies and how to address that. But,
So initially, early in our program, we were looking at a program for homeowners and stormwater management practices and education on individual lots. But we've pulled back from that until we learn more about the stormwater master plan, so that we want to get information from the stormwater master plan project and also from potentially this asset risk identification, as well as a community risk and vulnerability assessment. So we're kind of holding back on that individual property scale stormwater management education for now, but it might come out in year 2 or year 3 of the program.
okay.
Did I?
Okay. No other questions? Okay, well, thanks for your presentation. We appreciate that. And thanks for speaking loud. Next, we're going to have staff reports. CAO Lawrence will invite each director up with their report, and after they've each presented, you can ask any questions if you have any. Thank you.
So I'll ask Director Matthews to present the Finance Department report.
Okay. Are we back? Oh, we're live now. Great. Okay. I won't yell. I'll try not to. Okay, so good evening, everyone. I have provided a report for the month of October. Because some of you are new to the reports, generally I will bring a written report along with an update on our statement of operations for our town general fund, and then where we are in our capital for the town. And I've included tonight an additional report around where our reserves stand. So I will highlight some items in my report and then work my way through the appendices. I wanted to highlight just in my report, I talked about the fact that our town's financial and permitting platform, our software, is being sunset or discontinued. It is a few years out in the future, but wanted to make sure that you were aware that this may be happening, and we expect there will be an alternative from that vendor that we could use if we chose to, but it might give us an opportunity to look at other options over the next probably 3 years. So that will be something you will probably see coming through operating and budget plans over the coming year. I also would have reported last month on our compliance reporting for September 30th. One of those reports would be to provide our 3-year capital and operating budgets to the Utility and Review Board, along with our operating budgets. You'll see in my report that I note we had an operating deficit in 23-24. We are forecasting a deficit in 24-25 through to 26-27. Our deficits for this year in the budget were a little over 58,000. It then escalates to 261 and 406,000 in the following years. Because we are, this year we didn't move money into capital reserves or operating reserves, whereas in the next 2 years we are trying to rebuild those reserves as we should in accordance with our capital investment plan, along with the indicators that we have, which are asking us to have a good operating reserve based on the revenue stream you're bringing in. As a result of that, we were required on November 7th, and we did respond to them to say that we will be engaging in a water rate study. So the consulting for that, we are starting to have those conversations, and we hope that work can conclude by the end of the year. And once that happens, we will certainly have those conversations with this table, along with submitting that report through to the URAB and going through whatever process we need to do for those rate changes that we would anticipate, unless my colleague, Director Bell, says differently, to come in the next budget year. From a financial point of view, you will see that I've talked a bit about deed transfer tax. So for accounting purposes, because it is tax revenue, you will see it when we look at the operating statement. It will come in as tax revenue on the operating fund. Council has policy that says those funds will be used specifically for capital. So it'll come in on the operating fund, and then you'll see it go out as a transfer to a capital reserve. So it is an in and an out, which you may have noticed when you looked at the statements. Our statement, I also wanted to note that our tax revenue, we've levied $13,276,955. Our tax payments were due on October the 1st. We are at 4.49% remaining outstanding. For those of you who recall last year, we were at 2.4 this time. 2.4 was a positive anomaly. 4.9, 4.5 is the normal average. And I will note that we are one of those towns who do send out reminder notices to folks. They just went out about a week and a half ago. So generally that generates quite a bit of people coming in. So just for those of you who are trying to get a sense of whether that number seems reasonable. So moving into Appendix A, the Statement of Operations, you will see that I did include the actual results for revenues and expenses, along with a forecast. I wanted to, in particular, speak to our tax revenue. So what I have done this month is completed a detailed review of each of our revenue accounts and adjusted based on the information that we have today, where I think we will be for forecast. There may be some deviation from that, but it should be fairly close. From the expense side, I looked at just 3 particular items, and we'll be working with the directors to refine those numbers as we move into the next couple of months. So on the tax revenue side, you will see we are have a shortfall anticipated in our forecast of about almost 83,000. We did have appeals that dropped our assessment values by 3.73 million, which represents that $82,000. So we had 2 rather large residential that equaled about 2.8 million, and then 3 commercial properties that were all in around the 300 and some thousand mark. So that is the reason for that deviation. In particular, you'll see the deed transfer fee. We have received $80,819 to date. We don't have a lot of information from Access Nova Scotia around what that represents and how to relate that to coming forward with a good accrual or forecast. But we do have a sense that on the information we have, we at this point in time probably have a little over 200,000 that we think we have collected, not in our accounts, but have been provided to us in a sales report. We have looked at probably about 25% of the year. We are generally sales for the last November to March. So I've estimated an additional amount to bring us to about 375 for this year. That is definitely a guess, but as we get more information, we will refine that. I've also noted that there is an item for provincial government where we had a secondment that didn't occur. So you would have seen a reduction there in about 50% by the revenue, and you will have noted on the expense side a reduction of an equivalent amount for the officer that for where that position was vacant. We also noted that some of our back check revenue is under where we anticipated, and I know that the chief and his team are looking to try and bring that back to budget, but to be conservative, I have shown that we are anticipating a $90,000 drop in that. So those are the key items on the revenue side. The other two items that have been shown as a reduction in our forecast would be in Public Works, where we had a change in staffing that we included for the full year. That didn't occur at the beginning of the year, so we will have some savings related to that change in position in Public Works by about $53,000, and then in planning we have a similar situation, so that's saving us about $31,000. So overall, our net, you will see in the forecast for March, is a negative $88,000 that we do anticipate when we do the detailed expenditure review that we will be able to offset that. But I wanted to show you kind of where we stand today, so that we can see how we maneuver that as a senior leadership team moving forward. So those are the main areas that I wanted to highlight from Appendix A. And if it's okay with the chair, generally I would ask if there's questions on that particular report before I move into capital.
Sure. Are there any questions for the director based on her report? Councillor Baker. You don't have to. I'm going to turn it on for you. You're good now.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for my naivety again, but what is back check revenue?
Sure. So, Chief, probably, this is when, help me, Marty.
It's what
You're going to use the right
town,
terminology.
It's what makes the town run.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
We're fueled.
It's basically we do criminal record checks,
That's what
but
the
they're
word is,
done
I
from
couldn't
across
think
the country, right? So they come in out of it's called Sterling Back Check out of BC.
Oh, okay.
And so we've signed a contract with them. Yes, we have 6 people, I think, currently now working. There's a bit of a shortfall there because we had some vacancies.
Yeah.
But they are now full, and yeah, it's.
So Town of Campbell does contract work for back check
Yep.
services?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
thank you,
It
Chief.
brings a lot of revenue.
Criminal record check was what I was missing. Thank you. And it does bring a significant amount of revenue. That is most of what the revenue is in that line. Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, I guess you can keep going.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Councillor
Sure.
Maxwell.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the report. I just, a quick question here.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about excess of expenditure over revenue
Mm-hmm.
for 23-24, when I was reading through that, I thought that's mostly Water Commission. Is that correct, or is that an example?
If you're looking at the report itself, under
Yes.
that is all Water Commission.
That's all Water Commission?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're spending more than what we're taking in on, for the Water Commission, right?
Correct.
And so that's causing us to now have to do a water rate study for perhaps a change in the water rates at some point.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well,
Okay. On the capital side.
Councillor Baker.
Oh, my apologies.
I apologize.
That's okay.
And just to follow up on Councillor Maxwell, that is due to the capital expenditure of the water meter change? Is that correct? No?
No.
No.
Mr. Director Bell's changing?
Yeah, no, there would, and feel free to jump in, Director Bell, if you wish, but we would have recorded expenditures related to operations.
Okay.
Within that, we do transfer some funding to go to help support our capital plan,
Which is the water meter
which would have been
changeover.
part of the water meter change as part of that capital plan. So
Okay.
there would be some funds moved to reserves to fund that, but it wouldn't be the sole reason.
And I
A lot
will
of-
just say that our rates haven't been looked at in many years, but CAO might want to
Yeah.
elaborate on that.
Yeah.
It's one of the anomalies of municipalities. The water utility operates as a separate fund, and it's actually under the umbrella of the Nova Scotia Utility Review Board. So when we do a rate application, we would use Eisner and Associates. They do about probably 90+% of the studies. I believe our last one was 2018, but There are boats. A lot's changed since 2018. We can't change our rates without UARB approval. We're living on what was our built-up reserves, but it is time to get before the board to have new rates established.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Andrew.
In relation to that, will that, I assume there'll be a report that will give us the rationale for the excess in expenditure?
Do you want me to answer that?
As part of the study?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There will be a very extensive report.
Yes.
There will be multiple spreadsheets that will break down every component from the chemicals to what's charged to fire services. Yes, and it will be done by a third party.
Yes.
Okay.
A few inches thick, the old ones that I can find. Yeah, great.
All right.
So moving to capital.
Move on, yep.
So moving to capital, you will see a summarized report that has a forecast of 5.2 million to a budget of close to 7.8 million. The major change in this area is related to the ICIP funding for Donald Hiltz Connector. We know that we've moved forward with doing some tenders, but we only expect to be able to expend, based on the work happening this year, 640,000. We do have time, though, for those that to occur and still receive funding. That is an area where we get 73.33% funding from the federal government, and we have some time for that work to continue and receive that funding. So that is a major contributor. The other items that I wanted to highlight would be, and it may also have been in Director Langel's report, we had the Gorge Bridge. We had included in there to actually replace the bridge. We've removed it. So that deferral is about 50,000 in savings. So that's the major change under green spaces. And from a sports facility side, there was funding in there for skateboard park lighting at 100,000, but that's being deferred. So those items contribute to the significant underspend in the forecast. And then on the Canada Community Building Project funds, that is our stormwater and streets, and those currently are being forecasted at about 185,000 over an expenditure. That I know Director Bell will be providing reports on that as we move forward, and there may be some adjustment to that, but giving you the scenario as we see it today, it potentially may improve or not. The work is, I believe, still underway, correct, Dave? Yes. So that is the information for the capital investment plan update.
Are there any questions for the director on this report? Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Yes, hello. Thanks very much for that report. I'm wondering if there are surplus funds available under the CCB fund to cover the shortfall in that Canada Community Building Fund projects overage.
The CC, which?
The 185,567 overage. Are there funds available in that particular program? The funding from the federal government?
That CCBF is the old gas tax.
Yes, it is the old gas tax.
There is some, but not enough probably for this fiscal year. We have not received any indication or a dollar value yet this year for our gas tax. So it might be 400, it might be 430, it might be 450. So when we see that, there may be some maneuverability there as well.
Okay, that's great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay. The last item that I have provided, I provided this last October as well, as we start to get a few months away from our capital planning and operating planning for the upcoming year. You will see a listing of all of our reserves, excluding of the perpetual fund as noted above. The balances that are in the 2025 year to date represent where we are today. If we look at our capital forecast, where we expect to be over or under for the rest of the year, this would go down by about another 266,000. representing where we would be at the end of the year at about $6,551,000. So there are funds available within the capital reserve fund, and of note, you'll see the deed transfer tax, which was a specified reserve. By policy is noted there, it's what's received to date. So there will be over expenditures, but the deed transfer tax will have coming in at the 375 that kind of net us out to going down to 66 before the end of the year. This is something as we refine, in particular, the public works areas where the big expenditures are and those projects are still underway. As we refine that over this month, we should be able to give a more detailed projection in December to be ready for January, February capital planning. So just a little taste of what's to come.
Okay, thank you, Director. Are there any other questions for the Director? Deputy Mayor Cole.
Yes, thanks for that report. I just wonder where the gas tax money is located in this reserve fund. Is it located in the town capital reserve? Or is it located in the other reserves?
Town capital other. Yep, just let me confirm. It would be in other.
Okay, that's great.
Welcome. There's that in the sustainability fund, which was a one-time thing, would be the two big items there.
Okay, thank you, Director Matthews.
Okay.
CAO.
Yes, if I could ask the Director of Planning to come forward, Director Shoup.
Thank you, CEO. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and public as well. Just off the top, I wanted to mention that what I have in the report is something that I've basically developed that makes sense to me over the last 4 months. The information that Council might find pertinent, we're more than open to hear that as we go forward with these reports. It's mostly a discussion of the whats, the permits we do, the programs that we're conducting. The whys aren't so much in there, so if we can find a way to bring that forward, if that's something the council is interested in, I'm certainly happy to include that into the format of this report. So in terms of the whats, we have it kind of broken down into 3 categories between development applications, planning applications, and the work of community economic development. That's mostly Lindsay, with help from other departments as required. So the development applications, we're showing the development permits, the subdivision applications, the site plan approval applications, and they're mostly just in terms of statistics, how many we've done, where certain larger ones might be of note. So we have on the back pages we have the permit report, which looks at the month compares to last year. And there's also a year to date, which we're looking to update. Like I said, we're trying to do a little bit of catch up in terms of our reporting for this year, where we've been down some staff, and we'll get that up to speed, hopefully, for the next report. But that's part of the program for us. Also, the larger planning applications, and this one, there's the 2 Bryson applications that went off to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for his review and approval. He has a certain timeline that he has to work towards him and his staff, and before it becomes final for the town, we have to get his sign off on them. So that's in the process right now. And the other one is the COGS rezoning application that was recommended by the previous CAC to come to this council and to go to first reading which will be part of the next agenda for the council meeting, and you can make your own determinations on how that should go forward from there. But it is mentioned in here at least, just so we have some carryover. In terms of community and economic development, Lindsay's put together a solid report here, basically updating what the events have been in October. A lot about pumpkins. So the pumpkin people and the pumpkin walk both were reported as quite successful, and the preps are going on right now for holidays as the main focus for her and the team overall to pull that together. So that's fairly short overview, but again, very happy to have this evolve into something that is most useful for council, and depending on how we go forward with committees, and if the Planning Advisory Committee, Heritage Advisory Committee is part of that, that's another way in which information comes up to council at some point through those committee reports, if that's the way it goes. I don't want to get too far ahead of that, but just to mention that that's another avenue for these discussions to happen potentially, and for this information to come up for your review. So that's all I have for now.
Okay, any questions for the director? Oh, Councillor Baker.
The pumpkin people, sorry, I'm supposed to start this off by saying thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you to your staff. So my questions are particular to the Pumpkin People event. You probably know numbers better than I do, but do we have an idea of how many people attended the event, the cost to attend, and whether we hit our marketing targets or not?
Those are all great questions. Part of my understanding, and Lindsay's off this week, so I don't have her to back me up on this.
I put you on the spot.
But no, it's quite fine.
I think Director Landry will chip in here, chime in.
Yes, so Pumpkin People, we don't have the estimated numbers because it is a lot of community members coming from outside HRM coming into town. It is a free event to walk the streets and take photos, and I really appreciate the work that Jerry Little does with designing and maintaining those pumpkins for 4 weeks. So it is a great economic development piece for Lindsay and her team. So yeah, we don't have the exact numbers,
okay.
But I would say I know from traction on social media that we had well over 1,000 people with some impressions on it. So that's always goes a long way for our reach with the town.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
If we could charge, we'd be one rich town because there's people lined up all the time. Any other questions for the director? Okay, moving along. Thanks, Director Shu.
So I'd ask Director Langell to again take the stand and present the
could have stayed there.
Parks and Recreation report.
I love it. Love it. So you have in front of you the direct report for Parks and Recreation for the month of October. I just wanted to first highlight the Clean Foundation and Sophia for all the great work that they do. We work closely with them as well. They supported us in the Hemlock Conservation Project that we completed this year, as well as they're working currently on some wayfinding projects at Miners Marsh for educational pieces for around the trail. So they do a lot of great work, and we really do appreciate them. Under administration and operations, I just wanted to touch on that. We've received $30,000 grant from the province of Nova Scotia for our after-school program called Nature Kids. That goes towards the operations of the 10-month program that is located at KCA. That has a capacity of 48 kids currently. So, under facilities and operations, we have a racket facility update. So the racket facility submitted their proposal to the federal minister, but as there is now a call for federal election, they are unsure right now how that will go forward, but we are in constant contact, and once we have additional information, we will share it with council to know for next steps. Under programs and operations, I just wanted to highlight that we have listed 9 different programs, and there's a 10th program called SHIFT, or neurodiversity, a neurodiversity program. Just wanted to highlight that we have the Spike Fund. The Spike Fund is a great way to access funds that get you into any type of recreational programming that the town offers, and they can submit their proposals to the Town of Kent Falls Parks and Recreation Department. And then under events, just wanted to thank all of our partners, as Director Shoup had just mentioned, for all the great community events that were hosted in the month of October, because there was a lot. Even the Pumpkin Drop, which was at KCA, which was a great event that KCA put on. Don't really need to touch on holidays because it has been mentioned twice already, but holidays is November 22nd. And you can find all information for holidays at kentville.ca/holidays24. And then finally, under community outreach, we have the Arenas Condition Assessment and Feasibility Study. So we're looking to host another engagement session with the community on December 5th from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Fire Hall. So far what has happened is The community has provided feedback to our consultant, DSRA, and DSRA has come forward with multiple different options for revitalizing the facility to building a new facility. So now we want to get the community's feedback on if those designs align with how they viewed the facility in the future. So this will just be more information for you all in making a decision going forward on our facility, and that's it.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions for the Director? Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Director, and thank you for the report you've got here. Congratulations to the awards that were received at the Recreation Conference. Very well-deserved reward, so congratulations. With the Miners Marsh signage, wayfinding signage, I'm just wondering, we have a fence down there that has some signage on it, and I'm wondering if that falls under Ducks Unlimited to look after or Town of Kentville.
So my team will be in Miners Marsh in the month of November, removing all of the boards that are on that boardwalk coming from Klondike, and they'll be replacing the fallen down fence as well, replacing that. Signage we'll look into at Ducks Unlimited.
Okay, so the fallen down fence is by the main bridge going over?
Correct.
You know about that?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, okay, and the Spike Fund, just to clarify, that the funds for that Spike Fund come from donations from the community, is that correct?
That is correct. So some examples would be pickleball hosting a pickleball event, and they providing all their proceeds to the Spike Fund.
Okay, and so individuals can also donate to the Spike Fund?
Absolutely.
And we provide a tax receipt, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so people should be encouraged to donate to the Spike Fund. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Director.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the engagement session in December. Is that
Yes.
correct, December 5th? Are we inviting certain stakeholders to that, or they've already been invited? And how is it being advertised?
So our initial surveys with DSRA, our consultant, did initial one-on-one meetings with all of our local sport organizations that utilize the facility. They get their feedback on everything. This will be just a general outreach to the entire community. Whether local sport organizations want to come and participate is they're more than willing to. Same with council and mayor and council. We would hope that they would be in attendance as well. It will be posted throughout our social media and on our news feed on the Kentville webpage.
Thank you. And if I can extend that, in your report, which is a great report. Thank you. Very thorough.
Really appreciate that.
The partnership gathering to get happen in October, that is a reoccurring thing that happened in January 2024, and now you're looking for partnership feedback. Is that specific to this or recreation overall? Sorry, I mean this being the arena conditions assessment.
The partnership gathering is just general Parks and Recreation. So with our strategic plan or strategic initiatives for our department, this is our way to engage 35 to 50 partners in one place to see how we can support them and how they can support us to enhance the community.
Just curious, do you have a date established for that in November?
We do. Yeah, it's November 20th, I believe. 21st?
Yeah.
21st. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So there's no other questions. I just have a comment to make, and this may go to the CAO. You say here that there's nothing to report with the regional recreation complex, and now we've got 3 new council sets in place, and it might be time just maybe we send a message off and see where we stand, and if that's not going to happen, it would be nice not to devote more time to that, because we've spent almost 4 years now, and we've got our own rink to take care of, and it might be nice to get an answer from these new councils.
So, Mayor Zabian, it's my understanding that Kings County have deferred a final decision until January.
Okay.
On this. So I would say we're in a waiting mode until then.
Okay.
I'll follow up with Wolfville as to where they stand.
Perfect.
And I would be happy to bring council up to speed because we do have new council members around the table as to where the town stands in camera.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. Thanks, Director. You have another question, Councillor Baker? Or
I apologize.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Director.
Okay, the next report is our pool condition report. So just to highlight, the Kenful Outdoor Pool has been in operation for 70 years. So that's an accomplishment in itself. With the closing of our facility and flushing out all the lines within the outdoor pool, we had an issue with the water shut-off valve. So it required us to bring in Public Works to dig to get the water shut off. While doing the digging, what was located was standing water underneath the building, spanning about 40 feet past the splash pad. So from the inside of the pool building past the splash pad, there was that much standing water. On top of that, we found that the bowl of the pool along the top has started to crack and deteriorate, which would obviously be a health and safety issue. And on top of that, we have the pool leak, which we're trying to address. So because of all these factors coming into play, staff have reached out to Aquatic Design and Engineering. They are a specialized pool outfit engineering firm out of Ontario, and they are doing work with Acadia University in their pool currently. And we would like to invite them in to give it a complete assessment of our pool. The hope would be to get the full vision of what needs to be fixed in this pool, so we're not investing $40,000 into the piping of the pool to find out the pool is going to cost $1.5 million and not having the funds to do it all. So it would be in the staff's best interest to get a full picture of what the issues are with the pool, so council can have all the information possible to make the right decision going forward. So this is just to outline and inform mayor, council, and the community that we do have some issues with the pool, and we're looking to address it and looking to bring in a professional engineer to provide next steps for us, similar to the arena.
Okay. Any questions for Director Langell? Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Director Langell. I'm sad to read this report. Pool is a big part of infrastructure for a community, especially a rural community like we are. Do you have any kind of idea when we could expect information to come from this design firm or this engineering firm to look at the pool? How quickly will we get that?
Yeah, I had gone back with the individual this morning. So they're trying to nail down a time to meet with both HRM, Acadia University, and us at the same time. So they're just trying to nail down a solid date that they can be here. I would suspect it'd be another month or so before we got the report from them. We've had sent off all the preliminary photos and information that they would need to have an initial review of the state of the facility. And then the next steps would be for them to do a full assessment of all different systems in the building.
So perhaps in the new year sometime?
I would say
January.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I would hate to give you the date, the month of December, and not be able to fulfill that. So the new year would probably be more appropriate.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell asked the question I was going to ask.
Okay. All right. I guess no more questions. Thanks, Director.
So I'd ask Chief Smith to come forward and present the police report.
Good evening, Deputy Clerk, new council and mayor and CAO. Congratulations on your new appointments, everyone. For those that haven't been around the Horseshoe for the last little while, the police service has experienced a lot of staffing shortages, which have been corrected finally. We're fully staffed. And things are looking really good. So to give you my report, things might change on this report in the coming few months based on our commission meetings and what commission's looking for. This is kind of a standard report that's been used for as long as I'm aware of, and I think there might be some changes coming forth with it. So, but to give you some highlights, September was usually the fall months are very, very busy for us with training, and then having new members on staff as well. The numbers are even higher. So getting all those members trained under use of force qualifications we have through the Department of Justice, we have to do mandated training each year. That's just the basic, but just the basics is it equivalates to probably 6 days of training per member. So it's a fair bit, and that's just the basic. So Over the next few months, you'll see training numbers are gonna be super, they'll be very high. We have noticed an increase in our calls for service and charges over the last few months. Our court clerk has been very busy preparing court files, upwards of 25 to 30 charges a month. Typically, we're in the 15 to 20 range. And calls for service were up again this month to where they typically are, so around 300, 330 calls per month. My meetings were pretty much the same. We were at the fall conference in Cape Breton, LETR truck convoy, Nova Scotia Chiefs meetings. As I mentioned before, we're also dealing with policing standards, which were released in September, and I'll touch on those at our meeting next week with you guys. And then on those standards, so out of those standards that are released, we have a year through the province to go over them, and they're going to be doing audit processes with us as well. So over the next year, we'll be going through that with DOJ. Budget-wise, we're actually under budget. At the end of September, so we're a month behind with the policing because we have to do presentation. For those that don't know, I have to do a presentation to the board before I can present to council. So policing is always a month behind. But at 6 months at the end of September, we were where we should be at 50%. Overall expenditures were 43%. As Director of Finance mentioned, we are shortfalls on back check, which my last month's revenue was up where it typically is, so we're back on pace to where we should be. So that is my report. Open for questions.
Are there any questions for Chief Smith? Councillor Andrew.
I'm just wondering if there's anything that council can do, and I mean, I know it's a complex issue, the issue of officer retention, but are there things, I mean, you know, to do our best to have a friendly town and have housing available, all those things, is there anything you can look at us and say, if you're able to do this, or if you're able to repair the pool, we definitely would, you know, whatever it is, we definitely would keep officers here for 25 years. I mean, I guess.
Hopefully we'll address those things later tonight.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always certain things. We have a great police service. People don't leave here because they don't like policing in Kentville. It comes along with other things, benefits, pay, those types of things.
And you'll certainly tell us the things we need to do.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Director, Chief.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could explain, maybe for our new councillors, the calls for service. What types of calls for service are we getting in those 330 calls? What, just can you group them or lump them into categories?
I could. There'd be very many. There'd be quite a few. But I believe in your package you do get it's what's called a mayor's report. I believe you do. If you don't, we'll have it provided for next time. But basically, it could be from traffic offenses to impaired operation to provincial statutes, which would fall under like Liquor Control Act, Child Welfare Act, Coroners Act, Fire Prevention, provincial statutes, other criminal code. So we're talking like breaching condition orders, uttering threats. There's unwanted persons, public mischief, assaults. There's many to the list. But something I can provide is our 2023 year-end report, which would kind of categorize where our main calls are, where our most calls are. Yeah. It's actually quite in line with a lot of the concerns that came back on the Town of Kentville survey. Mm-hmm. They were pretty close to our actual calls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Kroll.
So thanks, Chief. Do you have any indication as to why the back check revenue was down?
Do I know why it was down?
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately I was losing people. So when I didn't have people to fill the positions, and I lost one that created a lot of back checks. She did statistics were quite high. I know you know the background of back checks probably way better than I do. But then things have changed with back check. They're not the same as they used to be. So it's not a pool that you can go in and take as many as you want.
Okay.
You have to keep refreshing the screen in order to get them. So they've changed their process.
Okay.
And that's probably something we'll look at when this contract is up with this company.
So are you back up to strength with the people
We
that
are.
you need?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. We'll make sure they're in line.
Thanks.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, you mentioned that you believe the charges are up. I guess your average monthly charge, the charges that's keeping your court clerk busy?
It is,
Is up from 15 to 20 regularly to 25 to 30. So if I take the two extremes, that's almost double.
It is pretty close.
Is that something that we need to be aware of?
It's
changing trends?
Changing trends, and it's not just us that's seeing it, it's across the province, across the country, you know. Unfortunately, a lot of those things are what I could see as a low-end crime, or I see as a low-end crime, but unfortunately it's affecting people that are running businesses, right? You know, shoplifting, those types of things. We're getting way more reports, and complainants are looking to have charges laid because there's so much of it happening that they're losing a lot, right? And they're losing a lot of inventory, so. As far as our basic, you know, impaireds, assaults, those types of charges, they're still there, they're consistent, but it is our small end crime that's unfortunately increasing.
Yeah, thank you, and I want to echo what Councillor Andrew said. If there's things that we need to do to help improve that, yeah, I'd like to know what we can do.
Hopefully, obviously the CAO will, I'm sure, have some information on this, but your committees, people, someone from council will be on police commission and then can also bring that stuff forward too, so, yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Smith.
Is that it? Good.
Oh, I think he's done. You're done, right, Rob? You don't have to press when you're done. That's right. You're trigger happy.
So Director Bell's anxious to get started on his engineering and public works report. So.
Anxious, yeah. We're on a good roll here tonight. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll start with the Water Commission, as I typically do. This is a bit of a repeat from sort of last month with a bit of an update for the new councillors. So the first year of our proposed multi-year residential water meter replacement program is well underway now. We will be replacing approximately 400 water meters in this first phase of a 5-year program focusing on the following residential areas. And the reason I repeat this every month because the company that's doing the replacement, Neptune meters, who that's the brand of meter that we typically have been using here these last 20 years. They're contacting folks first by letter, and then they're actually this week, I think, putting out, lack of a better word, door knockers, hang on your door to make that call and to book. So the streets that we're doing under this year's program are basically all of the Meadowview area, just outside of town, Belcher Street, West Main Street, the lower end of Prospect Avenue from Main to Overlook, and the McDonald Avenue, Henry, and Braeside Drive subdivision off of Chester Avenue. Those are areas that have been troublesome for our water operators to read, and these new meters, and they're also end of life meters on those streets. So these new meters will be more accurate and much easier for our operators to read. They can basically do it either from walking up the street without going door to door, house to house, or even do it from the truck. So residents in these areas have already been contacted with a reasonable response to date, but the contractor, for those that haven't set up an appointment, are encouraged to do so online or through the number on the letter or the door knocker. Under sanitary sewer area service, the regional force main project managed by the municipality of Kings is well underway. It's probably on month 4, I guess now, of its of a major project. They have approximately 1,000 meters now done of the overall 1,500 meters, so about 2/3 complete. And work is skipped ahead now to the east end down by the dog park while they await the specialized contractor work of crossing under Mill Brook. And they're also about to now to start, I think this week, on the reinstating of the curb and pavement on Klondike Street while the temperatures are favorable and the asphalt plants are still open. I have an update on the Stormwater Master Plan. The consultant, Dylan, has begun the field work portion of the townwide Stormwater Management Master Plan or study, and they have scheduled a public information session. I've been mentioning this for, I think, for two months now, but it is firm. It is actually next week, a week from tomorrow, November 20th. We finally have secured a venue. We couldn't get the fire hall, so we are going to use the ballroom over at Main Street Station, across the street, the cidery, from 5:30 to 7:30, depending on how long, but at least an hour and a half, upwards of 2. This will be posted on the town's web and Facebook pages tomorrow, just to let the public know, but you're certainly all invited and encouraged to attend this meeting. I thought first when Councillor Langell said about the assessment system, or what's the word, the engagement, I guess, Mr. Langell with the arena assessment, that it might be the same night, but they are on, I guess, back-to-back nights, next Wednesday for this one and Thursday for Councillor Langell's. That's the highlights of my report. Under projects, most of the capital works projects are now complete. The Donald E. Hiltz Road is still at the design stage. We're basically at 90% drawings, ready for a winter tender. That is the best time of year to tender a project of that size. So we'll tender it in the new year with a closing date, in early February, most likely, and then that will help us plan for essentially the next 2 construction seasons, 25 and 26, to bring that project to completion. We anticipate it to be completely done by the end of the 26-27 fiscal year. Those are the highlights of my report.
Are there any questions for Director Bell regarding his report? Councillor Andrew.
Where is the best place, if I could, Director, to send a citizen who is it better for them to talk to me or to call, or one of us, or to call the town if they are wondering about their area-specific work that might be
on a current project or something that they're concerned
on a current or pending, or they're wondering what's around the corner?
If it's something that's either currently being built in this year's capital works program, or maybe it's just something from an operations perspective, whether that's a pothole or something that we would just under repairs, certainly call the Public Works Department. Myself or Ahmed Kadri can take those calls, Councillor. But if it's something larger, like when is my street going to be repaved, or if it's a capital project, we try to do a 5-year we do a 5-year capital plan, and we look now even into the years 6 through 10, and certainly in planning, not necessarily in the budgeting stage. But it's always good to talk to us if they'd like to. We're always happy to talk to them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Baker.
I have just to follow up on Councillor Andrew's question, and I appreciate, Director Bell, the response to the Orchard Heights community that you put together.
Right.
And just as an example, it's great to have that information available to the public. And as Councillor Andrew pointed out, we're just trying to figure out the mechanism by which Kentville residents get that type of information. And what you put out there was great. It taught me a lot. I'm just wondering if you want that done on a case-by-case basis, or if there's an opportunity for us to make that information available to more than just the Orchard Heights community.
They're all quite unique. That subdivision is a 50-odd-year-old subdivision now. The infrastructure is aging, not causing operational issues, as I mentioned in the report, I guess, that I delivered to the authors of that letter, I guess, the co-authors, and then from there, I suppose they may have shared it to everyone that signed it in the subdivision. And, you know, some of their concerns were town-related, whether it be the condition of the street or, you know, and that's what people, obviously, citizens see is the road conditions or standing water or anything like that. But, you know, it's difficult to repave a street that has that age of infrastructure under it, as I mentioned in the report, without, you know, we can spend, you know, $1 million paving a street and then the next year have a water break because the water line is 50 or 55 years old. Not that the water line is causing us any grief, because water lines typically can last 75 plus. But we would like to do the way we've done Burke subdivision 3 years ago and McDonald, Henry and Brayside subdivision these last 2 years. Replace the infrastructure and then focus on a street that will last another 50 years. But as you also saw in the report, costs have gone through the roof. They've almost tripled in the last 3 years, and we're looking at, you know, multi-million dollars to do a full project of that size, which is quite cost prohibitive without more infrastructure money, shared money. Yeah.
I apologize for cutting you off.
No problem.
What I want to do is pass along an appreciation for that calculation.
Sure.
Because of folks like myself, laymen, who don't understand how that cost is achieved. You propose a number in that which I don't necessarily want to repeat
it's
unless
a huge number. Yeah,
it's a huge number.
Well,
yeah.
it's upwards of what did I put $5,000 roughly per meter. So
yes.
think about that on a subdivision that might be a kilometer long or longer.
And that we need to know, especially when you say costs have tripled in the last few years and people look at our tax rates and compare that. Sure. Can I just take this in another, I apologize if I may have a second question, Your Worship?
Go ahead.
The public information meeting on the Stormwater Management Master Plan, is that I need a definition of what that meeting is. Are you seeking input? Are you just allowing them to know what's going on? Because it's only an hour and a half, and I know a lot of people are concerned.
It's up to 2 hours is what the consultant has booked. We have 5:30 to 7:30 a week from tomorrow on the 20th. They talked about maybe having printed maps, and we wanted to make sure it worked with the venue, so they're going to have it more virtual. They'll be there, of course, but they'll have a screen with Kentville, and they'll focus on certain areas where they can certainly, you know, drop pins, if you will, on the screen where residents have questions or concerns about their area, and again, everyone from the public is invited, or sometimes there's sort of representatives from each area that are comfortable speaking or talking or bringing that up, and we'll introduce the evening. My project engineer, Ahmed, and I will do sort of the intro, and then we'll turn it over to the consultants. And I think looking forward to the meeting. I think it should be
so it's
productive.
An exchange?
It is an exchange.
Okay.
I don't know the full format, but that's what I'm understanding from talking to Dylan for sure.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Oh. Thank you, Director Bell. I want to ask you a question as your role of traffic authority. And it's never on here, so I feel bad about coming in. But I think last council, we were looking at Chester Avenue, and we talked about a traffic study for that area. Is that in the budget for this year, or are we looking at another year?
Wasn't budgeted for this current year, Councillor. And I think we talked about the at least a study to see the feasibility or the need or necessity for lights at the bottom of Chester. Is that the one?
That's what I'm referring to, yes.
Sure. Not something that's planned for this fiscal, but is something that, I don't see that being a huge cost to do a study. They'll do counts. They'll do counts on various days and times of day to see the wait times and the what would, I know we had lights. I think I was at Acadia, so 30 odd years ago, had lights there. What lights do, especially on a main intersection like East Main Street, is it just pushes the problem onto the thoroughfare. Yeah. So it will back up traffic, and it did do it then in the late 80s onto Main Street, and you'll see a reduction in the level of service of traffic on your main street. It was looked at, of course, as part of the study for the large development that was recently rezoned on the other end of town. Mm-hmm. And again, the traffic engineers for that development, they did that study, felt that the level of service on Park Street would drop so severely, that it didn't recommend lights at that intersection. It recommended turning lanes and that sort of thing. Some of that would be beneficial to Chester Avenue, but there's not the room there to do turning lanes out. I mean, you sometimes you can go. There certainly is still a turning lane at the bottom of Chester. You can turn right if you're heading towards New Minas, and the weights are all for the left, typically the left turners, unless it's backed up enough that you can't get in that right lane because you're 6 cars maybe up the hill. But we can look at having that study done, or I can at least get budget prices from a couple of traffic engineering companies to bring that back and let everyone know what that cost may be. But I would say it's in the $10,000 range.
Do we need to give direction for something like that?
If you wish to move it into this year's budget, we would need direction. It was always my understanding that would be brought forward in next year's budget as part of the operational expenditures.
That's fine. And one other question, because I drive on River Street quite a bit. There's no center line on River Street. Is there a reason for there's no line there?
Many of our lower volume roads don't have them. Typically, they're not in any subdivision. I know River Street isn't a subdivision, and it has become more of a thoroughfare to folks that like to shortcut, if you will, past KPS, and avoid the lights at the bank intersections. But it is certainly something that could be looked into. Not sure the huge benefit, but I guess it does keep people in their lane.
I just think coming down River Street and to go on to Webster, sometimes people come like right down the middle of the road. So if there was a car coming off of Webster down into River Street, then they're meeting almost head on in that area, because the people are tending to go over into the middle rather than staying on their own side of the road.
I could see the benefit for that stop sign extended for 100 meters or so to keep you in the right lane, because you can only turn right, of course, onto
but I'm talking
Webster.
about the people coming down. They're making they're not making a wide enough turn. They're making a narrow turn, and so they're almost in the lane for the right hand for the people coming off of Webster Street onto River Street.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. I'm thinking, because when you come to River at the intersection by Shannox
before you ever get there, like as you're coming by Shannox, they're almost in the middle of the road coming around that corner.
I see. Yeah.
Past KPS and
right.
Coming
the ones heading
out of town.
Call it east.
Probably.
Yes.
Yes. So, I just think maybe something that we should look at, because the volume of traffic on that road is more than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. We'll look at that.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Director Bell, for your report. That's really good. I think just to follow up on your question about Chester Avenue, has there ever been a study done before for Chester Avenue?
I have not since I've been here, Councillor. I don't know if there were any done in the last 10 or 15. Like I said, I know there were traffic lights there that were removed decades ago. I often come down that way in the morning, coming into town. From Colebrook. Sometimes I'll skip Park Street and come down Chester Avenue to get into town. And even at 8 to 20 in the morning, it's hardly ever more than a 3 or 4 car wait, which is certainly, I know from other counts and my own, I guess, education that wouldn't certainly warrant traffic lights. But I think it's the best way to get the answers to have the counts done and have it checked. I guess if I'm reading you right, you're saying you would like to see one done, or you said, has there been one done?
Yeah,
I
I've been in traffic there for 10 minutes.
That's long, yeah, that's a substantial wait, and it is certainly certain times of day, there's no question, and it's typically the left turn, of course, to come back into town, yeah.
So I think there's like some great value in just like the information, like he said, that you sent out just for common knowledge, because I'd like to see more of that information shared with the public, just so that they would know, and I don't know where that is. My other question for you is crosswalks. Sometimes the paint on them at this point is getting depleted. Is that like a once a year thing that they get painted, or?
Once, sometimes twice in the high volume ones, certainly in school zones. We try to hit, say the one at Gary Pearl and Park Street in the spring when we're doing first paint prior to Apple Blossom, and then usually hit it again before school goes back in September. But most of the other ones are done once. We did purchase in this year's capital investment program, we bought our Public Works a line painting machine. You may have seen it around town. We were probably the last town in the province, or maybe the country, that was still rolling their parking hatches and crosswalks all by hand with rollers. And we did do that at the beginning, pre-Apple Blossom, and then since then, Midsummer took receipt of the new paint machine. It's pretty much, I would say, it's done for the season. Now we're into November. You need the right conditions for it to stick, but I don't. If we have any problem areas that I haven't, they do start to wear this time of year, but it's usually once per crosswalk, unless it's in the school zones.
CEO, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I would. Line painting is always a challenge for municipalities. It's required because of environmental concerns that it be water-based, and it's very difficult to have that stay as the weather gets colder and as it's traveled on. If you can imagine, we're heading into a season where we're going to put salt on the roads and then scrape the roads. So since we've moved to water-based paints, it's a continuous battle to try and keep those lines down. Plus, really, you can only put them down in a certain temperature range. Just like if you tried to paint your deck when it's 3 degrees out, it's pretty greasy. I think what I'm saying is correct, Director Bell?
Absolutely correct, yeah. There is a small window when you can use an oil-based paint, but it's a limited window by environment, and it's not the same paint that we could get 20 years or even less ago. It just doesn't seem to I think they claim it's solvent-based of some kind, but not the old true oil-based paint that we used to get decades ago.
Councillor Hamilton?
And just one more question. There was one report, I don't even know where I saw it now, that you're going to be trimming back some trees. Has that already happened, or is that going to happen?
Always ongoing. I don't know what report that may have been. If it was a ways back. I think the last we do trees on a sort of both proactively and when we get a call from a troublesome tree that may be sort of at the property line, and we have to go out and check and see, is it a Kentfield tree? Does it have a tag on it? Is it a tree that was lots of trees in subdivisions are perhaps planted closer to the street than we would allow, but they're put in 20 and 30 years ago, and now they've become problem trees that were never the town's tree to start with, like they would have been perhaps in the downtown core where we had the elms of the 90s that we had to take down from Dutch elm disease and things. So we do have several trees that I guess we've inherited over the years, mostly in residential subdivisions. That I can think of Palmer being one area where those are ours, but going up there, the canopy has gotten low, and we've had to trim some of those back. So typically we rely on one or two different local arborist companies to do that work for us, but there may be a few more on their list that we've given them, but at this point in time, most of the work has been done for this season.
Councillor Hamilton, Director Bell answered your question, I think, but that was in, if you're looking for it, it's in the Parks and Recreation report. Both the trees, yeah, if you want to look at that.
And those, yeah, ours are usually the ones.
Yeah, no worries.
The ones on streets are ours, where the ones might be in parks that.
Yeah, I know Chester Avenue is quite narrow there, so, sorry.
That's okay, don't have to be sorry. Director Bell, I think you have a recommendation for us.
I do. Are we done with the regular report? Okay. Put my glasses back on. So this is a capital equipment purchase for next fiscal year, but in order to secure the equipment, we need to place the order now for proposed delivery in summer of 2025. This, I don't know if I need to read the entire summary. I think you all have it in front of you, but this is a line item to purchase a new street sweeper and hydrovac excavation truck to replace the end-of-life 16-year-old vehicle. We budgeted $450 with the anticipation of purchasing it in this fiscal year. That included the non-recoverable portion of the HST. This purchase was deferred until next fiscal year due to availability and the more urgent need of a replacement of a 2-ton plow truck that was switched from next fiscal to this year, which we have purchased and taken possession of. Through Canoe Procurement, we have secured a delivered price of $496,000, including the non-recoverable portion of the HST. So the $450 budgeted price for this year will be carried over to the next fiscal year, but leaves a budget shortfall of $46,000 to complete this purchase. In order for this specialized piece of equipment to be delivered by mid-2025, it needs to be ordered this fall, and invoicing will not occur until the equipment has been delivered to the local supplier here in the province en route to us in 2025. So the budget implications, the proposed funding for this project will come from the following sources. Of the 496, $78,333 will come from capital reserves, $80,000 from equipment reserves, and a debenture, a 10-year debenture of $337,667 for the total 496. And I have a recommendation.
Okay.
I guess we can talk to questions before we get to the recommendation.
Yeah,
Council.
well, let's get it on the table. So if we want to turn that into a motion, it would read: the Council Advisory Committee recommends to the November 25th, 2024 meeting of Council, the Council approve the purchase of a replacement 2025 street sweeper and hydrovac excavation truck for the purchase of $496,000, including non-recoverable HST. If I could get someone to move that. And a seconder, Director, okay. All right, is there any discussion on that? Okay, Councillor Baker. 3 of them.
Thank you. Director Bell, what's the cost, what's the expected lifetime of the vehicle? Is it 5 years, 10 years?
Well, our current one, still on the road and is used basically from April to December, where we put it up for the winter. It's 16 years old. It's a 2009, which we took delivery of in 2008, so I consider it to be 16 years old now. Trucks like that have 2 engines. They have the truck, and then they have the engine that runs the hydrovac or the sweeper. And it has, I think it has a GMC badge on the front, but it's an Isuzu truck, which was the brand of choice, I guess, in 2008. Can't get parts for it. So there's certainly parts of the truck, and our mechanic has been great these last 5 years, basically welding parts and finding things online to keep that truck on the road. But it's we try to keep all of our equipment for 10 years through the life of the loan, and most of our equipment is retired after 10 years.
So the life of the loan is 10 years, that debenture?
I'm not positive on that part. I suspect it would be a 10-year debenture for $337,000. That is correct. Director Matthews says.
So that vehicle's actively used, you said, from April to December?
Correct. Not just for sweeping. It's probably used for both public works repair and maintenance on sanitary and storm catch basins and manholes, and then charged out to the Water Commission interdepartmentally for repairs to water services or any type of work around power lines. Most of our older subdivisions, like Palmer, I guess is an example, or up on Orchard Heights, they've got direct bury 14,000 volt lines that we can't dig around because they're not in conduit or not in any kind of casing or concrete or shielding. And once we know we're in that vicinity of that type of work, we use the vac excavating portion of that truck to do that excavation safely for repairs to a water or sewer lateral or main of that nature. So it's used in a given year. It has more hours put on it, even though it works basically 8 months out of the year and sets winterized for 4. It gets more hours on it than any other truck in our fleet, for sure.
Thank you for that explanation.
Goes every day. Yeah.
I really appreciate that, because from a layperson's point of view, if you hear the word street sweeper, it actually, this truck extends beyond that. I appreciate it.
Very much does, yeah. It's probably our most valuable piece of equipment from a day-to-day perspective, other than our snow gear, of course, is pretty important too.
Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Yes, thanks, Director Bell. Can you tell us what is going to happen to our 16-year-old street sweeper? Is it going to be sold, or is it going to be just kept as a vehicle if needed?
I don't think we want to try to keep it as a spare because of the ongoing cost to keep it on the road.
Right.
It has reached end of life, so we will put it up for surplus sale. Ideally, we'll get April till July or August, whenever we take delivery of the new one. Once we have that and the kinks and bugs are worked out, then that sweeper will be put either to auction or to local tender that someone may want to buy it.
Do you have any idea how much the town could get for it? Ballpark? Big ballpark.
Small ballpark. Probably wouldn't get us very many hot dogs at the ballpark. $10,000 to $20,000. Yeah. I don't know. It's not much these days. I mean, they're very specialized and mostly, well, I guess some contractors would have similar use that less sweeping and more vac excavating. So there may be some interest from a local contractor to pick it up, but I don't expect it to go. But it is a great question, because it certainly could. I say not help offset, but at least the extra $46,000 that we didn't expect to spend on this price. That this is locked in, I guess, now at that $496, including the non-recoverable HST.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Hamilton.
I'm just curious, and I might be getting ahead of myself because I haven't been to and listened to what you're doing there. I'm wondering, do you have like a truck replacement plan where you plan ahead over the years as to where you're replacing trucks and where you're not? Or do you go to the full life of the vehicle? Like sometimes you can replace a truck before it actually really needs to be replaced, but it's a better long-term investment by doing that?
Right. Certainly our larger vehicles, our plow trucks, or what looks like a dump truck, but a single axle, the big yellow ones. We just replaced a 2013 plow truck, dump truck, last year, I guess. It wasn't delivered until January of this current calendar year, but last fiscal year. So it was in its 11th year. So we try to keep vehicles and most heavy equipment for 10 years. That usually sees the large debentures paid off, so we're not still paying for a vehicle that we don't have anymore, I guess, partly. We do have, equipment reserves that is sort of shared between Public Works and the Parks Department, and Council, last operating budget, Council approved an increase to that contribution. We used to set aside $60,000 every year for equipment reserves, and that doesn't even buy us a half-ton truck anymore, which half-ton used to be 25 or 30 grand, and you can't buy a truck for that. So when we start buying the $400,000 and $500,000 pieces of gear that last 10 years, we were depleting the equipment reserve certainly faster than we were putting money away for it. So that 60 is now $215,000 for the next, proposed at least for the next 5 years. It has to be, I guess, approved every every operating budget, but that went in this year and is planned to go in the next 4 years to help rebuild our depleting truck or equipment reserve. Capital reserves will hopefully also be not necessarily for equipment necessarily, but will be help contributed to through the D-transfer tax as well. We don't know what that rate may be, but hopefully we're seeing that go up by $300,000 or $400,000 a year as well. Thank you.
Okay. Bearing no more questions, are you ready for the question? It was moved and seconded that Council Advisory Committee recommend to the November 25th, 2024 meeting of Council that Council approve the purchase of a replacement 2025 street sweeper and hydrovac excavation truck for the purchase of $496,000, including non-recoverable HST. Voting is now open, or will be open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bell.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Zabian. Next up is the administration report. I would note that a lot of what was presented prior would have been what administration would have been involved in the discussions on. A big focus for the Deputy Clerk, Strategic Initiative Coordinator, and myself over the past month has been the election and the orientation sessions and scheduling for sessions in Halifax. Would like to note, because I don't know if I have previously, that the Deputy Clerk is now the Valley Rep for the AMA, Nova Scotia Association of Municipal Administrators of Nova Scotia. I'd like to note that the Strategic Initiatives Coordinator has been working with directors on updating our fire safety plan. It has been a number of years since that has been looked at, and appreciate the efforts that have gone into it. I think Sophia has already talked about the environmental section. Also included the returning officers report in the administration report. The election is now completed. Certainly very thankful for all the efforts of Al Kingsbury and Assistant Returning Officer Jeanette Stapleton. Happy to answer any questions the council may have about anything in the report or whatever else they may wish to ask.
Okay, Councillor Andrew.
I just want to make an observation that I really know how hard you two in particular have worked, and I just want to say thank you. I didn't plan on saying that on behalf of council, but I'm sure everyone here would echo that. It's been really great, and the amount of training already is very impressive. So you've both done a lot to really help us launch from a good place.
So I would say that one of my sayings that staff have heard me say many times is good people make us look good. So anything that may reflect on me is because of the efforts of everybody that is around the administrative team.
Councillor Hamilton.
I have to echo what Councillor Andrew is saying. It's been a really great transition, and you've made it very good to transition this way. And appreciate all that the staff has done for the swearing in. It was a really great event, and really appreciated, and everybody within the staff has been very helpful in the transition. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. CAO, we're going to be talking about the adoption of the provincial regulations for adopting the new code of conduct. And reading through it, I noticed that it said that we should have an independent person look at complaints and things like that. Will we be looking at a staff position or a shared staff position with other municipalities, or how will we work with that?
I'll turn that over to the Deputy Clerk to respond.
There is a requirement that the town have on retainer an investigator for these cases when they come up. And a lot of municipalities are asking the same question. And I know that, for example, the Association of Municipal Administrators is starting to do that work to find available people that have the qualifications for that. So we will be finding out, a list of qualified people. Hopefully for our region, there will be several that might be available and interested in that work. So that is something staff are going to be looking at in the future.
Perfect,
Yep.
perfect, thank you.
Councillor Baker.
To further on Councillor Maxwell's question, around the code of conduct, it is not specific, unless I'm not reading it properly, as the mechanism for complaints to be registered. It just indicates that a complaint is made to the investigator or to the CAO, or I'm not clear on how that mechanism works.
Can we just
Won't
pause
wait
on
that?
that, because it's
Okay.
coming up in a couple of minutes, and then
Thank
we
you
can
for
have
that.
discussion then, yeah.
May I have
We'll-
a second question, Your
Go ahead,
Worship?
yes, go ahead.
About committees. We heard from the chief that the police commission meets tomorrow? No?
Next week.
Next week. Do we have a representative from this council on that committee?
We're gonna work on that tomorrow, so.
Tomorrow, thank
yeah,
you.
I'm not sure.
You've answered both of my
We-
questions, thank you.
We have to pass that though by council, so that meeting will happen before. Yes, I'll let the CEO.
So I'll speak a little bit to process. I think that the mayor has reached out to you to ask you for your preferences. He will work with that list to come up with what he considers his first draft. Then he will sit down with me. I'll have input just from a staffing side. Ultimately, it is council that has to endorse the list of committees. So what he or what the mayor or myself may come up with still requires validation from council. I expect that, again, we can call a special meeting of council to deal with that. It really hampers the business of the town until those committees are fully appointed.
Correct.
Do you expect that meeting might be for the 29th?
We could work on that, I guess, if you guys wanna schedule a special council meeting, I guess. Maybe we'll discuss that tomorrow and follow up. Is that the
Thank you.
plan? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it shouldn't take me a long time to review the list. I just from an administration's point of view, need to make sure that if there's input that I would like to have, it's given before it comes to a public council meeting.
That's fair, thank you.
Councillor Hamilton.
Just to speak on that, to give you some information from the police commission side, I'm on it as a citizen, and we had planned for a transition phase. So this next meeting that's coming up, they had planned for there to be some transition and not to have people that were from council. They're still working on their old system.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have now, we'll accept all those reports. Thank you, staff and directors, and those will all be part of our report. We're now gonna move on to business arising from old business. We've got the heritage bylaw update. I'll let CAO Lawrence lead us into that.
So this is one of the pieces that do not fit neatly into the transition. This was presented by then Councillor Zabian, now Mayor Zabian, to council at the October 1st council meeting, and it received first reading to be publicly advertised and to go to council for second reading at the October council meeting. That meeting didn't take place. First reading generally is just to introduce a bylaw. You would introduce a bylaw. We would have to advertise at least 14 days prior to the meeting for public to be able to have input. And then really the debate would happen at second reading before the final vote. But I did want to take the opportunity, since CAC was already scheduled, just to put this on the agenda in case there were questions. Heritage bylaw, I think, has been worked on since 2023. And what it does, in essence, is it sets out the structure of the committee. I think it's 3 voting members that are from the public, 2 from council, the CAO, and whomever else from administration might be appointed. As with all committees, I wouldn't have a vote, nor would any other administrators. Darren had a look earlier when he talked on it, and that's because I had already informed him that he will be part of or his team will be part of the committee. It also has 2 mechanisms that you could bring forward a property for heritage designation. One is that the committee identifies it, in which case the property owner owner would be notified, and the property owner would then make a decision as to whether they're going to let that stand or not. The other is the property owner may come to the committee and say that they believe that their property should be designated a heritage bylaw, and then the committee would ultimately make a recommendation to council. That's at a very high level what is in the bylaw. Again, it will be coming to the next meeting of council where there is sufficient time for us to advertise 14 days in advance, which means it won't be at the November council meeting. But then we will have any public input, and council would be able to debate and make a decision as to whether they move forward with it. Again, you normally wouldn't have something go to council and then to CAC, but it didn't seem appropriate to not take the opportunity to at least introduce you to the bylaw before you have to debate it at second reading. So if there's questions, I'll try and answer them.
Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor. Just at a cursory reading of the heritage the bylaw, there's no delineation between residential, single unit residential versus commercially owned, business owned property?
No, I don't believe that there was a delineation between the two. There's a list in the bylaw as to all of the different components that the advisory committee can make recommendations to council on, and I don't think it splits it down into commercial or residential.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I just wanted to make just a point of clarification that this bylaw comes from committee. It's a committee that has been standing for quite some time, and the committee went through and looked at other bylaws, heritage bylaws, and the committee then came up with this bylaw. So it wasn't Mayor Zabian or myself or anybody. It was a committee that came up with this. So just to clarify that, thank you.
And my apologies, what I meant was that the mayor presented it to council, but the committee, which has been working on it since 2023, would have had the say in the drafting of it.
So CEO, where we voted on this at last CAC to send it, we don't have to prepare, we've done that step, right?
You've actually voted first reading at the October 1st council meeting.
Yep.
So it now needs to be advertised at least 14 days prior to, and then it will come to council again for second reading.
Okay.
This is just one of these pieces that doesn't fit neatly into the transition, and I would rather provide too much information than not enough.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to the adoption of provincial regulations respecting the Code of Municipal Officials. I think sorry, I apologize. I didn't. Councillor Baker.
I apologize.
Oh, no, you're good. I've got to put this down.
No worries. I just want to commend Councillor Maxwell on the good work that she's been doing on this effort on the heritage bylaw for years. I think it's well done and well laid out based on experiences of other communities. Can I just ask at some point that we might have a chance to observe and if not, pre-plan for obstacles that we might encounter with such a heritage bylaw?
Councillor Maxwell, do you want to speak on that, or either of us can? We both sat on that committee.
All I can
you
say.
have the floor, Councillor Maxwell.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It wasn't just me. There was a whole committee of people that formulated this bylaw. It's what we might encounter is all explained. It's in the bylaw. There is a process for what we might encounter and how to handle that. So there is, it's all in the bylaw. And so you'd have to go into the appendix there and look at those appendices. And, you know, if somebody disagrees and they don't want their property made heritage, then there's a process that they would go through to make sure that that didn't happen. And that's about the only thing that we would have as a problem. The only other thing is there is a process whereby if a person wanted to make an alteration, a significant alteration, or let's say they wanted to tear down one of our most heritage historic buildings in Kentville, a developer could still do that even though it's designated as a heritage building. There is a process for them to follow to be able to do that. So all it does is offer some protection for heritage buildings, and it provides a process for the citizens of the town of Kentville to know early on if there's something that's going to happen to one of our main historic buildings in town. That's what it does.
And I will just add that as a committee, we reached out to other municipalities as well, so we tried to kind of work with them and mirror some of the stuff that they do. Solicitor? Yeah.
If I might just add, the deputy clerk and I have had some conversations about this as well. I think it's important for anyone who's reviewing this bylaw to also understand that there are provisions in the Municipal Government Act that complement this bylaw, and they really have to be taken together. And I think you'll find that's often the case with a lot of things, that the MGA will lay out certain rules and then the bylaw will supplement that. And this is one of those areas where you really have to start with the MGA and then the bylaw fills in the gaps.
Yeah. And then the MGA provides the follow-up for fines and...
Yeah, so the MGA puts the initial structure in place, and then the bylaw says this is how the town of Kentville chooses to implement this. And if there's a breach of any bylaw, the Municipal Government Act sets out what the penalties are, and usually most bylaws are enforced with summary offense tickets, but they don't need to be. The ultimate penalty is always court, judge, fine.
Fine, thank you.
Okay, moving along. Alicia, you can come back up now. Your desk is all ready.
All good. All right. So as Mayor Zabian mentioned, we're going to dive into the Code of Conduct resolution for this evening. That will be formally done at your council meeting later this month. This is providing you with the background. So for your context, council, this is the Code of Conduct we spoke about during the orientation as well, and that Jason Hahn spoke to as well while he was here, our municipal advisor, just around these changes that are coming forward. A key date I want to remind council of is that we are expected to pass this resolution by December 19th, and that includes staff informing municipal affairs. So ideally it happens before the 19th, so we have capacity to send that in. Similar to what Jason Hahn had explained previously, this has been an ongoing project since before 2017 with various partners at the table to develop the Code of Conduct. I wanted to circle back on the question that was brought up previously around the complaint piece. Within the Code of Conduct, what's entitled Schedule A from Municipal Affairs is under section, it's on page 3 of 14 of it, but under section 9(1) and 2 more specifically. It states that the complaints go through to the investigator, and as the deputy clerk mentioned, we're still seeking clarity on what the expectation is around what is being defined as the investigator. So once we get that piece, we'll have more clarity on that complaint process, but the initial is to the investigator, who then connects with the CAO, etc. from there. So once we have that clarity, this will fully be communicated to you once we have that information. At this stage, the real adoption is around what is stated in the Code of Conduct and how we arrive and how we show up as councillors versus the actual process that's indicated. So that will come forward. One unique element for the town of Kentville is that as a council, you do have policy G16, which is entitled the Code of Conduct for Elected Officials for the town of Kentville. That does have elements of Code of Conduct, and it also has elements of the fact that you have town-owned laptops and town-owned towns and etc. that isn't captured in the provincial Code of Conduct. So within that recommendation at the top of your report, it's stating that we are going to pass a resolution to accept these provincial Code of Conduct, but also state that we should repeal and replace our Code of Conduct policy. And what staff would do from there is remove the Code of Conduct elements from policy G16 and then revisit the actual kind of operational side of your role around what does it mean to have the town-owned property and etc. And that would be complementary to the provincial resolution passed Code of Conduct. I'm getting nodding heads, so I feel like that's making sense. The province did provide a recommended resolution, and there is various ways that we could adopt this code of conduct, but resolution is one of the most clear paths, and it was what was recommended from Municipal Affairs and Housing, and you can see that printed. There's like a gray box behind it under recommendations on the second page of your report. Those are the key highlights, and again, this would be a resolution that you pass at the November 25th council meeting. Once passed, the Deputy Clerk and I will make sure we inform the provincial government that you folks have done the work and your due diligence before December 19th.
Thank you, Alicia. So if we take that recommendation, that council repeal and replace policy G16, Code of Conduct for Elected Officials, and adopt the Code of Conduct as provided in the MGA with the following resolution. Whereas the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for the Province of Nova Scotia has made the Code of Conduct for Municipal Elected Officials Regulations, Nova Scotia Regulations 220-224 or 2024, the regulations, and whereas municipalities are required to adopt the model code of conduct prescribed by the regulations on or before December 19th, 2024, pursuant to Section 4(1) of the regulations and Section 23A of the Municipal Government Act. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Kentville hereby adopt the model code of conduct as set forth in Schedule A to the regulations, which shall be titled the Code of Conduct for Elected Officials at the Town of Kentville. So that was your recommendation. I'm just going to turn that into a motion. The Council Advisory Committee recommend to the November 25th, 2024 meeting of Council that Council repeal Policy Statement G16, Code of Conduct for Elected Officials, and adopt the Model Code of Conduct as set forth in Schedule A of the regulations, which shall be titled the Code of Conduct for Elected Officials for the Town of Kentville. If somebody could move that, and a seconder.
Just before that's moved, Your Worship. You can't repeal the policy by resolution because it can only be repealed or amended by policy. And what I'm hearing from staff, I have to admit I didn't take from the report. The CAO and I had some emails earlier. It sounds to me like staff is going to come back to you with recommendations for how to amend the policy.
Okay.
And the resolution going to council is simply to recommend adoption of the provincial code.
Okay.
Now, having said that, council doesn't want to have competing codes. So staff will, before this goes to council, staff's going to need to come back to council with recommended changes to the policy, and there's a minimum period of notice for changes to policy. And so I look to staff because staff's going to have to suggest the timing of this and how this is going to dovetail and whether it does come back to the next council meeting or whether it needs to wait until the one after that.
Which would be January, right?
Do you want me
CEO,
to
did you want to?
Go ahead.
I feel confident with what is external to the code of conduct in our existing, like in policy G16, we have code of conduct and then other elements. At this stage, we would remove code of conduct and bring the former policy forward to accept it as still policy G16, change the title. And then if at that stage, you want to dig deep into the weeds of what does our policy look like if we have a town-owned laptop, we can revisit it then. But at this stage, to the solicitor's point, we don't want competing elements. So we take code of conduct out of policy G16, accept the resolution, and we have the standing remainder of what's in policy G16 right now. That is everything except code of conduct. Yeah. That's my fastest timeline suggestion to meet the December 19th.
I'm just making the suggestion that instead of the word repeal policy statement G16, we bring forth the motion of amend policy statement G16.
So I was going to suggest that it's probably easiest to deal with it as two resolutions. Okay. And so the unless you make all the changes by policy, it's easiest to deal with it as two. One, the resolution to adopt the provincial code, and that's what's been presented in the staff report with the two introductions, right? The whereas, be it resolved that. So that's That's your first resolution. The second one could simply be it resolved by policy that your existing policy G16, your existing policy G16 be amended to remove all references to the code of conduct. And by the time this gets to council, staff have the specific sections so that that's in front of council. There can be no question what's coming out. And ideally, staff be cognizant of the notice timeframe and ensure that that's distributed in advance of that to council, so there can be no issues at the council meeting. And as long as staff can do that, then it shouldn't be an issue. So keep the second one, be it resolved by policy, that keep it fairly general, since unless the deputy clerk has the particular sections at hand now.
Okay.
So I would say the first motion is just to adopt the model code of conduct, and the second is to amend blah, 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 to remove all references to the code of conduct.
Okay.
I'll do the second one, have you read them.
And through the chair, if I may,
Yes.
before you pass,
Yes.
I do want to let council know that we have let the province know of our anomaly situation. If not every municipality had a code of conduct structure like we had before, so they are aware of this as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So the first motion would read that council adopt the model code of conduct as set forth in Schedule A of the regulations, which shall be titled the Code of Conduct for Elected Officials for the Town of Kenful, at the November 25th, 2024 meeting of council. Someone could move, I guess we already moved that, right? Are you happy with those changes? And you're happy with those changes? Okay. So is there any discussion on that? Ready for the question? All right. That council adopt the model code of conduct as set forth in Schedule A of the regulations, which shall be titled the Code of Conduct for Elected Officials for the Town of Kenful at the November 25th, 2024 meeting of council. And voting is now open. And voting is now closed. Motion has passed. And the second motion, Deputy Clerk is going to read that to you.
Just one moment.
In 1 second.
So the second motion reads that council amend policy statement G16, which is titled Code of Conduct for Elected Officials, to remove all references to Code of Conduct.
We should have one reference.
And if you could just include at the beginning, be it resolved by policy that.
That council
That's
by
all,
policy.
that's all we need to say to make it a policy. Be it resolved by policy that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that'd be the recommendation, right? CAC recommends to council.
Yes,
that
CAC recommend to the November 25th, 2024 meeting of council by policy that council amend
That's fine.
policy statement G16, Code of Conduct for Elected Officials, to remove all references to the Code of Conduct.
Somebody could move that. Councillor Maxwell and Deputy Mayor Kroll. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, you ready for the question? Again.
That Council Advisory Committee recommend to the November 25th meeting of council by policy that council amend policy statement G16, Code of Conduct for Elected Officials, to remove all references to the Code of Conduct.
Voting is now open. And voting is now closed. Motion has passed. That was the tongue twister. Okay. All right, we're moving right along to the Green Municipal Fund grant application. You're still there.
Still standing here. You haven't got rid of me yet. All right, so this report is in front of you this evening through the partnership with our Clean Foundation. It was wonderful to have Sophia here tonight to help bring new council in particular up to speed on that 3-year partnership that we have signed off on with them. They've brought a lot of assets to our team and have been really supportive, and we've appreciated all the expertise that they bring to the table. I know there were some questions around a bit more layers around the program, and one thing I would name is that Clean gets to sit at different tables than our staff are or that you folks are. So they bring Kentville up in different rooms that we're not necessarily in. So that's a really large asset for our municipality. And they can also bring other layers and expertise. And I know, Councillor Baker, I'm going to come back. You had a question around the stormwater management master plan and how does the flood mapping that's happening also through Clean come into play. So the Clean Foundation has access through different data points and through the province as well, and one really unique thing that they can bring forward is social vulnerability mapping across the province. So when we have flood mapping throughout our community and when we reference our stormwater master plan, if we're looking at like our GIS or our mapping system for the town, we can add layers to that, so we can cross-reference really high, perhaps flood zones with social vulnerability areas, and that becomes a high priority point likely for commitments moving forward to address those issues. So that's an example of something that the Clean Foundation can bring to the table in the conversations that we have, whether it be through our asset development planning or future planning for the town. They have a lot of expertise on their plan as well as licensed planners. So that helps us immensely in terms of having just another reference point as we build our projects moving forward. It's been a wonderful journey since April, and it also connects your staff here with other staff and municipal units specific to this topic. And for returning councillor members, you'd remember, I believe it was July, and I'm hoping my brain is getting the dates right, but conversations tonight sparked this. It also brings forward opportunities for us that we don't necessarily hear about. In July and June, when we were talking about the PACE program, which for councillors coming to the table now was a program some other municipalities have initiated around bringing different kinds of financial supports for energy systems within our community. And at that time, it wasn't identified as feasible for our municipality. However, through those conversations, Clean picked up on it. Council made a commitment to continue seeking energy options for our community, and Clean noted that and said, hey, Kentville, if this is a motion you've passed, we have a community looking for a letter of support for clean energy. And so we were able to bring that in front of Council. Council passed the motion. We submitted a letter of support for the regional municipality of Colchester to look at solar energy systems, and if they move forward with that, they'd reach back out to us as a possible partner if we wanted to join them in a solar venture. Doesn't mean we're doing that for sure, but it just shows an example of how partnerships come to the table and to staff's desk that we maybe wouldn't have had access to before without that partnership. Nonetheless, the report this evening is also coming forward through that partnership and is really about an opportunity that's currently being offered through FCM, or the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, around different climate funding that's available to municipalities, specifically on climate-ready plans and processes. Through the funding available, it does have intended outcomes. However, the focus point is around increasing capacity through staffing. And so the opportunity that Clean would support us on is submitting an application to bring in a term staff to support a climate-ready plan for the town of Kentville. This would be complementary to the CCC program that Sophia spoke to, the Community Climate Capacity Program. And so this would really look at what kind of resiliencies do we have in Kentville, but also areas that we have at risk. So this would complement the stormwater management master plan. It wouldn't be focused just on that opportunity, but other climate influences that are happening within our community. And within this report, there was a jurisdictional scan done just to show you that climate plans are common to municipalities. And you see in the jurisdictional scan that a lot of the climate plans have the exact same name. This is a result of a program offered in 2013 from the province of Nova Scotia to increase municipal capacity around climate planning. That was also a staff term position. Some municipalities kept the staff at the time, some do not. And then you also see plans specific to GHGs. From a Kentville perspective, we do not have the 2013 version of the plan that was offered through the province. We did participate in King's 2050 planning, and we do have the ICSP, which is an integrated sustainability community plan. I'm worried. I got Jeff's nodding at me. I think I got it. That was written in 2010. At this stage, that plan is quite dated. For example, its main priority it recommends to the town of Kentville is to protect our existing agricultural land. If you look at the town of Kentville, it's really the research station that's our main agricultural land at this point. So it doesn't necessarily reflect the current state of the town. We do have other objectives that we've put forward around reviewing our own GHGs. The Hemlock Valley Adelgy project is a huge one for us. We do have an anti-idling bylaw, but the intent of this plan is to really bring those projects together and acknowledge that we have a change in climate since 2010 and the objectives that we need to put forward and to understand our community. So the hope is at this stage, it's not an ask for council to allocate budget items indefinitely in this moment. It's to say at the next council meeting that you are interested in staff moving forward with submitting an application to see if this is even an opportunity we can consider as a community. This means that we would take your motion, submit the application, and once we hear back, we would bring that forward before budget season, and at that stage you would decide if we would move forward with that project. Based on calculations, it looks like it would end up being a $14,000 to $20,000 commitment from the town of Kentville. The remainder of the funds would be offered through FCM to support a term position to help hold the work with support of internal staff and the Clean Foundation staff. Sophia is also here, so if you have further questions around this tonight, happy to dive in to answer that. There is a timeline within the report as well that sort of spans out the work to 2016 and to bring that forward. So we are here if you have questions regarding the work and a motion for council at the next meeting to approve staff moving forward with an application.
Are there any questions for Alicia? Councillor Baker.
Why am I the only one? Thank you for that.
Yeah, no
I
worries.
appreciate it. And I was trying to look for your title, and I didn't want to get
That's
it wrong.
okay. I don't have it on here. I don't even think I have my name on here.
It's CIS? Or is it, no?
It's Alicia is the name.
Yeah.
And then my title is Strategic Initiatives Coordinator. So,
SIC, yes, okay.
I've never said it like that,
Yeah,
but we
okay.
can say it like that if you'd like.
I apologize. So my understanding is that this funding is going to, the application for this funding is going to partner with the good work that Ms. Munoz does.
Yeah.
Are we looking at, and I think this might be a question for us as council as well, updating the King's 2050 plan from 2013? Is that the outcome of this, or is it just to build capacity within staff who may leave?
That's a good question. So Kings 2050 really sits with the municipality of Kings County.
Yeah.
So that's not a Kentville specific plan. We just happen to reside in Kings County, so it does impact us. So it wouldn't be an update of that plan, nor would it really be an update of the ICSP where that plan structure is so outdated. Just for
That was the
example,
2010 one. Yes,
it's
thank you.
rooted in the language of pillars, and we know that's very colonial language. If we're working towards decolonization, we
Right.
don't want to use the language of pillars. So really, this would be starting from using what we have, seeing where we've been, and seeing where we can go, but also adding the expertise that we now have through the partnership with the Clean Foundation, with the feedback we'll get from the Stormwater Master Plan to really compile this. Of how does all the intersectional issues come to play in a robust Kentville Climate Action Plan, so we don't have specific individual plans for these all these individual products. It's how do we bring this all together, and really the main objective is how do we bring it into policy and how do we bring it into our MPS. Like that's the root of what we do and how we make impact. So if we can bring our climate work into our day-to-day, whether it be our LUB or MPS, that this is part of that project of what might that look like and how might we reimagine our response to climate as a robust across the organization instead of an individual plan. If that makes sense, Rob?
I like what you said about bringing it into a strategic plan that can complement all our other policies. I think we need to focus on what that plan is. I think we do. I don't mean to argue. I'm just trying to understand.
All good.
I think we need a focused plan in order to make that work, and I think the good work that you're doing here is going to provide the research and the backing for that strategic objective.
Yes.
because I don't want it to go unserved. Because if it's not valuable, then it's not worth doing.
Yes.
So I want it to, continue to be valuable, so.
And
I think we're
maybe-
talking about the same thing, are we not?
I'm going to clarify one piece that
Okay.
I don't even think I directly said the words of, but part of this work, some key deliverables is a robust climate risk analysis as well as a climate resiliency analysis. So climate risks, like our stormwater, that's one climate risk. There's many other climate risks at play, even on that one issue. So it's really bringing all those factors together, completing that analysis, that risk analysis, also seeing where we have resiliencies, where are we strong, and then that identifying where we move forward.
Right, and providing recommendations from those analyses.
Correct. And
Thank you.
really I'm realizing I keep defaulting to the MPS, but saying the municipal planning strategy, that those also inform that work and how do we inform that policy, if that makes sense, which is our ongoing forever strategy. Is our
I'm very
MPS.
thankful for your explanation, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion would be that council approve the submission of a funding application to the Green Municipal Fund to support a term staff position in the development of a climate-ready plan for the town of Canfield, the November 25th, 2024 meeting of council. If I could have someone move that. John, Councillor Andrew, and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Kroll. Is there any more discussion on that, or so we're ready for the question? That council approve the submission of a funding application to the Green Municipal Fund to support a term staff position in the development of a climate-ready plan for the town of Canfield, the November 25th, 2024 meeting of council. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is passed. So that concludes our business. We now open the floor to we have no correspondence, to public comments. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. And just when you get to the podium, Gary, you know the drill. State your name and...
Gary Randall, School Street, and a different subject. But first of all, thank you everybody for helping Ron save his land. I think that was a good thing. The different subject, Remembrance Day. I don't know if that all happened on a spur of the moment, that we didn't get to go out and stand in the rain if it did rain, but the business that made their facility available, I kind of wonder where the heck we would go if it rained and snowed and all that, instead of standing outside like we normally do, because a lot of people are getting older. But anyway, if it happened in a minute, it happened really good, and I think they did an excellent job, and I would hope that town council or whoever writes letters could maybe write a letter to White Family Funeral Home in appreciation for all the work they did, their facility, the staff they would have had to get in there, and the cleanup afterwards. And anyway, I think they do a lot for the community. They stepped up, and I think they did a hell of a good job. I hope you can write a letter in appreciation. Thank you.
No, and I agree. They did a tremendous job yesterday, and the Legion, both of them together, they came together, and it worked out perfectly. So I'm sure we'll send something off. Is there any other public comments? I guess there's none. Council has business that they have to conduct in a closed session. We're not going to be returning after that session, so if I could take a motion for us to go in camera, and seconded by Councillor Maxwell. Thank you, and thanks staff. Thanks for putting up with us tonight.